Which one is Kaylee? You are Kaylee. Nice to meet you. You write very nice letters.
Thank you.
I am very proud of all of you, but you really wrote a nice letter. So, I am available, and what would you like to know? I can't hear you at all. Need a microphone? No, really, truly, I told the teacher earlier that my hearing is not as good as it used to be. So my children tell me, Mother, you should get a hearing aid. I just don't want to do it. So don't be bashful. It's only you and I. There's nobody in the house here, so you're just talking to me. And I'm a good grandma. I don't mind. Okay, go ahead.
First of all, we would all like to sing.
A little older.
Hi.
Oh, what a great group. Love it. Oh my goodness. You must be... How many hundreds are you there?
Over 300.
Yeah.
We have over 300.
Okay.
My name is Audrey, and I helped plan this too.
Lady, and don't get nervous. I don't bite. I don't. Relax. Pretend you're talking to your grandmother. Okay?
Hey, Grandma.
All right. Oh.
We did a Holocaust project, and we had to make books, and we had to include a concentration camp, a survivor, forms of torture, and we had to study so many things.
We'd like to show you something.
We would like to show you some examples.
I think I will need the teacher to help me a little bit here.
Sure.
Okay, teacher,
Yes.
let's hear it again.
The students did a research project on the Holocaust, and through their studies, they had to create a Holocaust book. And what they studied were forms of torture, survivor stories, different concentration camps, famous people. Some of them studied the Lodz Ghetto, some of them studied the Warsaw Uprising, some people studied people like Anne Frank and Oskar Schindler. And what they'd like to do right now is, we just got 3, but we'd like to show you what some of their projects look like. Would that be all right?
Absolutely. I
Okay.
would love that. I would love that. I'll tell you what.
Yes.
If anybody who did a special project and wants to mail it to me, to look at it or show it to the education department of the Illinois Holocaust Museum, what we have right here in Chicago,
Yes.
that would be super.
That would be
Show it to the education director, or you can mail it direct to the Illinois Holocaust Museum, and it is 9603 North Woods Street, Skokie, Illinois, 60077.
Okay, thank you very much.
I tell you what, I will send an email of the address to Kaylee
Okay.
after we get through talking. And really, truly, they would appreciate hearing from you children as well, of your impression, of what you have learned, because we are trying to teach all of you children to learn a lot about this tragic time, so you can become better citizens and be more aware of all the problems that could happen.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, at this time, our first group would like to show you their project. So
Yes.
they're going to introduce themselves, and they'll show you their project. Mention your name.
I'm Ashley DeLong, and this is Mason Brokaw, Shelby Ellison, Amber Sturts, Chloe Love, and Hannah Fisher. And this is our Holocaust binders.
Oh, it's awesome. So Steph, I can't quite make out the photos. Right underneath her face. Right, because from my view, I see the picture and I see your children in the background. So right at the top, left corner, right corner, whatever it is. There's one photo right at the very top. What is that about?
This is a picture of one of the,
Can't hear you.
it's one of the death camps, and it's a picture of a death camp. And then we have two quotes in the corner, and then a picture of the Star of David. And
You know, I looking at these pictures, and I am very pleased what I see, because what you have learned, you put it on paper. And this is your description, what you have learned through the books, or maybe some of my testimony. This is super great, because it really, truly, it shows that you paid attention to the studies, what your teachers taught you, what you read in the books. Congratulations, that's really great. So how many of you worked on this one paper?
all one.
Oh, so it was a group project.
Yes.
Oh, so every one of you deserve a big grandma hug.
This is another case that we did, and it was about the concentration camps. And we had 5 different concentration camps that we had to provide all the information with. And then we had the blueprints from them. Yeah.
This is absolutely mind-boggling the way you, my goodness, it's a whole book. I didn't realize it. Oh. I mean, I can't read absolutely nothing whatever on the pages. The camera doesn't pick it up, but nevertheless, it's just mind-boggling what you have done. No, it won't work. I'll even take my glasses off, but I still can't see. No. I mean, my vision is good. My hearing is questionable, but the camera just doesn't pick it up. But that's okay. That's okay. Kaylee will send me a photo of this in the email, put her to work, and that will be her job. And then I can see it through the internet. Okay.
We're going to bring another group up now to show you what they've done.
So they higher, I can read that.
We got higher.
That was the pink girl. Bring the picture to the pink girl. A little more. Stop. Very slow. Which goes determines your, what's the plus line? I can see it.
Fate.
Your what?
Determines your fate.
Okay. Huh. What a beautiful way of your choice determines your fate. That is so true, you know, because now let's talk a little bit about Holocaust. You know, unfortunately, we didn't have many choices because we were imprisoned, and as prisoners, you don't have any choices. But later in life, as adults, you will have to do many, you will be confronted with many choices in life. And you have to think to your inner self and think about, am I making the right decision? And go for it. And I'm sure that you are intelligent enough to do the right thing. So this is an excellent slogan. Congratulations to this group.
Thank you.
This one we'll have to describe because I can.
Describe what's on the table.
This is our table of contents, and it just shows what we researched right here. And then here's some photos of the camps and what the people look like, and Anne Frank, and some kids at the bench.
Wow.
And all of our names are written in Braille right here.
Know something?
Hebrew.
Both yours and the girls before you have done a fantastic job. I think that these presentations should be made available for other schools, for other students. I think that you kids can go on the show, on the road, and be actors. And
now this is our last group who's going to show you what they've made. Can you see that all right?
Okay, what's the wait, behind the fence? Behind the fence. Very deep thoughts. Okay. And
Our table of contents.
this page tells about being in prison. I can't read the words, it's too pale.
This is the table of contents. It shows all the things that we have in our book. It has like the torture and the assault of the Third Reich, and then concentration camps, Oscar Schindler, and our survivor story.
Great descriptions. Super great.
This is our
But this
big-
word, I wish I would know. What's that word on top?
It is torture. And for our project, we had to research different types of torture that the Germans would use against their prisoners. And this page is mostly about the experiments that were performed by Dr. Joseph Mengele at Auschwitz.
Oh, you guys study that too?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now let me give a little introduction to Dr. Mengele. I'll tell you real fast. I told you that there is a Holocaust Museum in Chicago,
Yes.
Scout, Illinois. But there's another Holocaust Museum in Terre Haute, Indiana. It is called Candle. Now the reason I tell you about that one, the museum was established by a Dr. Mengele twin survivor who was just a 10-year-old child, but because she was a twin, she was experimented by Dr. Mengele. So if your teacher can Google, you will get a lot of fantastic information there.
Thank you.
So you can go on the road too with your presentation. It will be very informative.
Thank you so much.
But this is great.
Now we would like to hear your story, if you'd like to share with us.
Love it. We would like to hear your story now. If you would share with us your story, we'd all love to hear it.
My story about the whole thing?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, my Lord in heaven, that's a long one. Okay, now you guys sit down and I'll talk.
Okay, we're ready.
And it goes like this. You know, on the internet, when you saw some of my photos, among them is my teenage picture when I was just about your age, graduating 8th grade. And naturally, every parent is proud of their children. So what has happened, my parents mailed that photo to my American relatives, and that is how I got it. Because during the Holocaust, we lost absolutely everything, even the last stitch of clothing. So how did that all go? Now you studied a little bit of World War II history already, and you have heard of the very bad man called Hitler. And Hitler was running Germany, and he was in charge of the country, and he had three desires. One was to create an absolutely perfect race, all healthy, smart, intelligent, blonde, blue-eyed German youth. The next was he wanted to create space. So space meant occupying other countries. And then he wanted to have slaves. So we're talking about he wanted race, perfect race, space, and slaves. And he started his plan once he gained leadership in Germany. And by the beginning of the Second World War, in 1939, his Nazi army were ready to enter different European countries and occupy them. However, there were two units of German soldiers. One unit was in charge of the military part, of fighting for space. The other German unit was a special unit, and these men man's entire job was to take care of what Hitler called the final solution. He wanted to eliminate the Jewish people. He wanted to eliminate the Jehovah's Witnesses, the homosexuals, and anybody who was politically against him. Also the gypsies and many other people. He didn't like Catholic priests and so forth. So now what did this special group of Nazis do? Well, let's pick a country like Poland. This unit would enter the country. They would not do any fighting as far as guns and shooting and all that stuff that the soldier does during the war. These men's job were exclusively to go into people's home, move the Jewish people out of their home, put them into a ghetto, from the ghetto into a concentration camp, and thus the killing machine began. But I grew up in Hungary, and Hungary was an ally of Germany, and the Nazis did not come in. So what happened with us from 1939 to 1944? Yes, we don't have the Nazi occupation, but the Hungarian government adopted a lot of the anti-Jewish laws that was created in Germany, and that was called the Nuremberg laws. So the Hungarian government started copying all these anti-Jewish laws and thus making our life miserable. But our life was still better than our fellow Jews in Poland and the other countries, because we were still sleeping in our own bed, we were still going to school up to a point, we still had our businesses for a limited time. So in comparison, we were better off. But our life was pretty difficult. So let me give you the first crazy law, I call it, because the young men who were in love, they were maybe of different religion, they were not married to each other. So naturally the young people in love would be sad about it, but it's a very unimportant thing. So there comes another law, and that was dealing with the military. And until about 1940, all young men of military age would serve the country. There was no discrimination. It would be the same thing as any other religion. They would just enter the military, serve their term, etc. So, matter of fact, my father was a dedicated soldier of the First World War. He was a patriotic Hungarian. He was proud of serving his country. But in 1940, the government decides that the Jewish young men could no longer wear the country's uniform nor bear arms. However, he still had to enter the military. So, in about 1942, my brother was about military age, and my parents had to outfit him with civilian clothing, just like when your children go to overnight camp, and now he left for the military compound. Here, entering the Hungarian military compound, he was no longer housed together with the regular soldiers. They were in a separate unit, and they were not called Hungarian soldiers, but they were called the Jewish Labor Commando. They had to wear a yellow armband on their left arm, indicating further that they are Jewish. And when a regular soldier would be permitted to go out on a pass, visit the family or whatever reason, the Jewish young men were no longer getting any passes to leave the compound. And the other terrible thing was that they were treated both physically and mentally the most abusive way, and is indescribable. They were given the most menial jobs, and it was just a horrible situation. And then came another law, where from one day to the next, a professor, a doctor, anybody who worked for government offices, a pharmacist, for instance, were given the pink slip. You're fired. For no other reason, just they were born Jewish. So now you have to think a little bit further here. Maybe that pharmacist had a wife and children, maybe had to support his elderly parents, and there was no income. And there was no such a thing as a welfare system. So the Jewish communities had to pool their resources to support these thousands of unemployed families. Then, all of a sudden, the government decides that the Jewish person could no longer own his own business. For no other reason, this is Jewish. In my father's case, he worked 6 days a week, 10 hours a day to make a living with us, for us. He was in the meat market business and he really worked very hard. So all of a sudden the new law comes that he cannot be the owner of his own property. And there was no such a thing as exchange of transferring a business and all that, legal stuff that we are used to in America. They just took it away. That's it. Everybody was unemployed. And even the poor little tailor or the little self-employed barber who really just earned a meager living, the government decides that they are not giving them any more work permits. You know, the license that you have to hang up in your business. So without that, you can practice your job. Anyhow, these were happening one after another. And the reason I go into such details for you children, to make you understand that genocide does not happen from 1 minute to the next. It builds gradually. And if you listen to my story and our stories, in how slowly they took away our freedom, how slowly they took away our financial belongings, they have reduced us to zero. Our self-esteem was gone, our values were gone, our families were gone. And I will come back to talk a little bit more about the freedom part. So anyhow, all these things are building, and there was another horrible law that affected me personally. Hungary had an anti-Jewish law even before Hitler was in power. And that, it had a Latin name, it was called numerus clausus, which meant that only 1% of Jewish children are permitted to enter higher education. After I finished my schooling and I was ready to go further, my grades were very good, and my parents were in the position where they could pay for my college studies and so forth, but I did not get into that 1%. You have no idea how painful that is for the teenager. And as I said, there were just too many different laws hitting us, one after another. Finally, in the spring of 1944, Hitler decides that Hungary is not doing enough with the final solution. So first he gave a trick to our leader of our country, our president of Hungary, and he told him that he needs about 100,000 Jewish men to work in some of his factories. So what happens, by March 1944, the Nazis walk into Hungary without a gunship, because don't forget they are buddies with the Hungarian military, and they walk in, and the tragedy of tragedies, I told you about that separate unit of Nazis who handled nothing but the Jewish situation.
Yes.
The leader of this group was Adolf Eichmann. He was an expert on all these issues. He was the lead bad guy. And with his leadership, they were able to move close to 500,000 Jewish people and gypsies out of Hungary in 51 days. It was an unimaginable mass production. So how did it all work out? Once they came into the country, we were told that we have to put a Star of David on our clothing, on our left side, have to sew it on very tightly, and even little children's clothing had to have that star on, otherwise they were not permitted to go out. But then came much stricter laws, and that was, we got an order from the government that all the Jewish people will be moved into a ghetto. Now here I give you a little English lesson. In America, we understand that a ghetto is where an ethnic group decides to live. But thank God they can pick up and move to another part of the country. There's no restrictions. But in real life, this was something totally different. So how did it all play out? They decide on a big city and they allocate a certain section to become the ghetto. But there were Jewish people living on farms, they lived in suburban areas, so all these people got an order that in 1 hour's time they had to pack a little suitcase with about 3 days provision. And they had to be downstairs on the street lined up to be taken to the ghetto. Now you have to picture a family where there's only the mother at home. The father has been taken away to this labor force, even though he wasn't even military age, but they needed men. So there is the mother alone, and there are maybe little kids, but she hasn't got time to pack each one of their belongings. So sends a child to her bedroom and says, pack this bag up. Now what will a 5-year-old kid do? Probably put her toys in it. I mean, that would be the logical thing. But what I'm trying to point out here that there's such chaos going on in the house at that point. So now the group is collected on the center of the street, and the Hungarian police had an umbrella group. It was called the gendarmes. These men are the most cruel creatures on this earth, because I understand that the police has to obey orders, or a soldier has to obey orders. Well, but when they follow the orders 200% more than what is expected of them, there's sheer brutality. And these gendarmes were the people who were escorting the suburban residents to the ghetto. By the way, there was no such a luxury as a